Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is dance. When we dance, it's a collaboration, whether it's with our dancing partner or the music or just the flow of our heartbeat and rhythm. And what if we were to look at life itself as a dance, with life as our partner, as our collaborating partner? So it should be a fun conversation. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you joining us here this morning, and welcome to everyone else who's with us. It's great to be here with you. And today we're talking about dancing. What if we looked at life as a dance? So the thing about dance is it's a give and take, whether you have a physical dance partner or you're partnering with the music or the muses for that matter. That it's a creative collaboration. And there's an exchange. And if we could allow ourselves to welcome life itself as our dance partner, then perhaps we could follow her lead. And what I've noticed in dancing is that I love dancing by myself. And when I dance with a partner who really knows how to dance, I can dance exceedingly well, because I can follow the lead of that partner. And if we can allow for that with in partnering with life as our dance partner, I think that we can just flow across that dance floor and find tremendous grace. And what I notice is that so many of us resist life, resist life's offerings, resist where life wants to take us. And we try to manage and control and strategize and direct. And when you're dancing, if both people are trying to lead, it creates kind of a disaster. And instead, when you have a partner, a dance partner who really knows what they're doing, there's a synergy that develops that isn't available without that creative collaboration. So I like this idea of dancing through life, because it has a lightness to it. It has an uplifting feeling. Typically, dancing is a joyful experience. It's a freeing experience when we can surrender to the music and the rhythm and allow ourselves to be moved by it and directed by it. And it's transporting. You know, if you've ever had an experience where you just gave yourself over to the music, to the steps. Sometimes the steps are prescribed. Sometimes, it's a matter of keeping certain steps, but then you get to add your own rhythm to it, your own flavor, your own spark. And really what we're looking at here is releasing resistance, releasing control. So if you've ever learned a dance, initially when you learn a dance, it's like steps, do the steps, do the steps, do it right. Eventually, those steps become so much a part of you that you are able to create your own flair, generate your own expression within the constraints of those steps. And it goes beyond being rote to an expression, to an authentic expression, even though the steps may be the same. You can see this in line dancing when people are all lined up, everybody's doing the same foundational steps, but some people have like this incredible vitality and rhythm and expression, whereas other people are just going through the steps. And so it's when we reach that level of comfort and ease that we can just find our own expression within that relationship, within that constraint. I discovered years ago the somewhat seeming paradox of liberation within constraint, or freedom within constraint. And well, I don't know if it's interesting to you. It was interesting to me that I discovered that through different eating regimens or different food regimens and philosophies. I have experimented with all different kinds of eating regimens, I'll say. So years and years ago, and it's really interesting because I haven't heard anything about macrobiotics for years and years and years, but for quite some time it was a very big thing, and was pretty constrained, pretty restrictive kind of regimen that had certain cooking methodologies and certain ingredients, and it was all very foreign to me. It was very interesting education, and it exposed me to all kinds of ingredients and techniques and philosophy of eating that had been completely unknown to me previously. And so within these confines, within this container, so to speak, there were limitless possibilities for expression. And then I found the same thing when I experimented with going raw and preparing raw foods, or preparing or being vegan or vegetarian, or any of these number of different kinds of diets that have sort of a prescribed container. Within that, there are all kinds of well, unlimited variations that you can create for yourself to explore and expand. So it's the same kind of thing in art, that a blank page can be incredibly intimidating. But if you have certain rules or certain constraints that you set up for yourself, then you can explore an unlimited range within that particular container, within that definition. And so perhaps the same with dance. When we think of dancing with life, we have certain constraints that maybe we manufacture. Sometimes we manufacture them, we choose them, we create them, and then we live within those constraints, but we can live within them in a very, very creative way. And we can also most often change those constraints. It was interesting. I don't know if you've ever listened to the channel Bashar, but it's shown up on my media feed a lot lately. So I've been listening to him a lot and have been enjoying it quite a lot. And he was talking about how in being here on Earth, we've agreed to certain constraints, like the rules of this environment. And it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to be confined by them, but we generally assume them, right? So things like gravity, things like death, these are kind of accepted constraints of our existence here on Earth. It's like the steps in a line dance. There are certain steps, and within those constraints, there's lots and lots of variation. There's lots of variety and creativity that's available to us, a lot of different expressions that are available to us as we navigate that environment. So it's funny because so many people say I'm not a good dancer, right? And the thing is that when we allow ourselves to really let go and be with the music, to presence ourselves to the music and the rhythm, there's our own dance that we can generate, and it's a self-judgment. I believe that there are people that aren't good dancers, and I tend to think it's because they aren't allowing themselves to connect with the music, but or their bodies perhaps, to be able to be fluid and responsive to the communication. It's a two-way communication. And when we allow ourselves to dance truly, hopefully there is a sense of freedom and flow that's part of it. And the idea of life as a dance there can be awkward parts of a dance. Like if we go watch dance, or, you know, a dance performance, there are all different levels of communication. There's passion, there's sometimes an awkwardness in dance that we might observe. There's form, there's structure, there's also expression within that. There's perhaps technical mastery also, all different degrees and dimensions. But the thing that strikes me most about this notion of life as a dance is that we really do get to collaborate with life. And if we can allow her to lead us, if we can be responsive, there's such a greater sense of presence and freedom and ease available to us if we're not resisting life. So I had such a great conversation yesterday with one of my clients. We were talking about being versus doing. And that's kind of what I'm addressing in this conversation about dance. But the thing that happens so often when we have a conversation about being versus doing is, how do you do being? You know, like, how can I accelerate the process, right? And the thing about wanting to accelerate the process is that, again, what we're trying to do is control it, direct it, define it. And it's such a paradox, because it's almost an act of grace to find yourself in a space of just being. You kind of can't do your way there. So we were talking about letting go, and the thing, and I've talked about this a bunch, but letting go, I don't think Westerners are really very adept at letting go as much as we are about accumulating. And so there's an allowing. As far as a doingness toward being, I think what we're looking at is allowing. And then as we notice that we're trying to do something or we're judging something, we get to allow for that too, like to notice it, to be like water, to allow all of those things to flow through and be curious, be aware, that then the resistance releases, the judgment releases, and then we can be expanding more fully into all of it, all of it. The judgment comes up, notice the judgment. Instead of judging the judgment, notice the judgment, allow that to move through, allow that to flow. It's like one of those dance moves that might have felt awkward, but you flow with it, and all of a sudden you're finding that you have greater fluidity than you ever imagined. So Rosalind says, being, is that like noticing the inner dialogue that's happening? Watch without judgment, like saying, oh, there's that thought form again. Exactly, just to notice, just to notice. So being is the state that's under that, I think. Being is allowing the unimpeded flow of life, perhaps, and versus doing, right? Because we want to do it right. Am I doing enlightenment right? It was so funny. One of the things, I think I mentioned this, one of the things that Bashar was talking about is this one. Well, actually, it was a woman asking questions, and she said, I've been on this enlightenment path 6 years now, and I really should be further along. And just that, it's so funny because she's trying to do enlightenment and she's determined that she's not exactly where she's meant to be, right? So she's resisting what's here. And as we resist, I don't know anything really about Aikido, but what I understand, the very little bit I understand, it's a martial art, but it uses the force of the opponent to redirect their energy. So someone's coming at you and you redirect it. So their force is what's allowing you to just sort of deflect that attack. And if that's wrong, please forgive me, but I'm using a metaphor maybe poorly. But anyway, I think that what we're talking about in being is to be in that flow, that allowance of life's evolution, life's circumstance, life's presentation, to just be able to be present. So when we're present, we're not at the effect of our past or our future or our constructs, which is really what the past and the future are. They're constructs that we bring into the moment to try and structure it or make sense of it or whatever. And the more we're able to free ourselves from the notions of who we are, the more we're able to free ourselves from the triggers that we have accumulated over time through trauma, often are being attached to our knowledge rather than being curious about the world. As we release these things, then we are more able to be, present. Because otherwise we're just living, yesterday we talked about projection, we're just living in this world of our own construction, whether that be constructs that have been socially imposed that we have integrated or whatever. As we peel away these layers, then we're more free to dance and to be the dance. So maybe that's a distinction too, is to be the music, be the dance, rather than trying to dance to the music. There's a communion, there's a collaboration, there's a connection that is this deep flow. And it's moving into another thing that I had heard from Bashar is that, or another channel actually, is that where we get to be, despite all the craziness in the world, is that all is well. It may not look like that. It may not look like that. It doesn't look like that. You know, with all the horrors that occur in the world, it sure doesn't look like all is well. And it's all part of an expression. It's all part of this magnificent play, passion play, where we get to experience the spectrum of experience, and what's perhaps real is that centered place of wholeness that's untouched by any of it, that includes all of it and is undefined by any of it, which is the whole notion of expand to include. Because as we expand to include our rages, our sorrows, our joys, our excitements, our disappointments, what we notice is that we are not any of those things. Specifically, we are all of it. And if we are all of it, we are none of it. So there's a we or an us or an I or a beingness that transcends all of that. And as we allow ourselves to experience that as if it were water flowing through, then it doesn't pull us along. There's this place that remains centered and present through all of it. And we were talking about emotion in this conversation yesterday, and how it was so interesting. The person was saying that they wanted to become more fluent in emotion, like to understand and be aware. And I said, well, really what you're talking about is presence. What we're looking for is presence. And presence is there when we allow when we allow life to be as it is. It doesn't mean we don't have dreams or visions or hopes and aspirations, but we have all those without attachment. And I know it sounds paradoxical, but it was so funny because they were asking, well, what's the practice? What's the practice? What can I do? What's the doing I can do to accelerate the process? And it's so funny that that's what we do, is try constantly seeking for more, faster, better, right? Rosalind says, does dancing look like maybe rather than copying, move in the opposite direction? I think dancing looks like not calculating. I think dancing looks like responding in the moment. So sometimes it can be moving in the opposite direction. Sometimes it can be copying. Sometimes it can be just, I don't know if it's copying as much as absorbing, and reflecting. Because it's more of an instantaneous thing. We're looking at sort of transcending the linearity of things to jump into this other dimension. Anyway, I gotta run. So much love to you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And it's always a privilege to be with you. So until next time, so much love.